All right, so as a second part for Unit 4A, Chapter 1, we're going to talk about the due diligence concept as it applies to the gas technician field. In general, due diligence means the actions that are reasonable in the circumstances that would be expected from a reasonable person. You see how vague this thing is. It is okay, what is reasonable? How do you decide something is reasonable? If I'm saying this has legal um, uh, connotations, so due diligence is used as a legal term in the court of law. Maybe the lawyer is asking, did you do your due diligence? And then the judge is supposed to make an assessment whether you did your due diligence, and the judge is not a gas technician. And how is the judge supposed to deduct from your answers whether you did your due diligence or not? Some people get confused between doing your due diligence and taking responsibility or being responsible for your actions. Those are not the same. So due diligence is not the same as taking responsibility. Even though the book says they are the same thing, they are not the same thing. Legally speaking, due diligence is what you do before something happens, and taking responsibility is what you do after something happens. All right. And also, you don't have a choice of taking responsibility of your actions or not. If your actions result in a public safety issue or property damage, then you are, by default responsible because you have a gas technician license. You have received the training. You're supposed to have done your due diligence before something happened, right? Now, the main question, as I started asking, is, well, okay, who is this reasonable person that is supposed to have done the reasonable actions? Who is this person? And it is always your peers. It is always other people who can walk a mile in your shoes. It is other people who have the same training, doing the same work. In other words, it is other gas technicians. The prosecutor might call on an expert witness and say, if you were the person doing the job of the defendant, would you have done the same thing? Did the defendant do their due diligence, or they just did something wrong? So let's have a look at this question. What is the definition of due diligence? Right? Number one, actions that are taken effectively, not necessarily, actions that are taken effectively. You can do your due diligence with not necessarily, being labeled as an effective gas technician. And also, it's the nature of the actions, right? Actions that are taken to avoid property damage. Well, that's a good start. Okay, but how about personal injuries, right? Or public health issue. Actions that are reasonable in the circumstances. I think this is what we were kind of trying to concentrate on. Actions that ensure customer satisfaction. That is the business side of things. They are not due diligence in terms of the gas technician requirement. That is, D here is due diligence. This is due diligence for business. So I'm going to just eliminate D. I'm going to eliminate B because it's talking only about property damage. It's not talking about personal injuries. And also A is a very, irrelevant, whether you're taking the actions effectively or not effectively. It's irrelevant. So it leaves C as the correct answer. Also repeating that reasonable means as deemed by your peers, the other gas technicians. Right? What is the most important? So the most capitalized is saying that probably all of the following A, B, C, D. Each one of them is important, but what is the most important requirement to be able to exercise due diligence? Let's look at them. Good understanding of legal requirements of the industry. Well, that would make sense. How are you going to make a decision if you don't have the information to make the decision based on the information, right? Having the proper certificate of qualification. Well, have you seen how people drive? Yeah, they all have licenses. Does that make them good drivers? No. So I'm just going to discount B, because having a proper certificate never ensures that one will do their due diligence. Having good experience in the field, well, I would say maybe, but isn't due diligence a legal term? Isn't legal term something that is attached to the law and the rules? So being experienced in the field doesn't mean you understand the law. If you don't understand the law, you cannot do due diligence, because you don't know what are the liabilities, legal liabilities and requirements. Maintaining competency as a technician is the same as saying being a good technician. Well, no, that's not going to help you as much with due diligence, because you need to know, in other words, you need to have the legal knowledge. You need to have the knowledge and information that tells you what is expected from you as a gas technician. Not that, yeah, I'm going to go and install this furnace and walk away. Well, you can do that, but you can be the best installer ever, but do you know that it is your responsibility to kind of educate the end user on what is required? Do you know that it is your responsibility to leave the user manual at the installation? Do you know that it is your legal responsibility to ensure that the the appliance is left in a good obviously operating? That's common sense, but it's a legal requirement, is what I'm saying. So unless you have your legal requirements understood, you're not going to be able to do your due diligence. Therefore, I'm going to consider A as the most correct answer. All right. Question 17. Which of the following is the most important reason to practice due diligence? Again, there are many reasons to practice due diligence, but which one of those reasons is the most important? To watching your back, that is always a good reason. That is always a good reason, no matter what you're doing. Once you start dealing with other people, watch your back. Ensuring public and industry safety. Well, public safety is paramount. You have to understand that is the most important, and I'm not referring to any brand here. I'm saying public safety is paramount. That's the most important thing. Ensuring the quality of service, that's a good thing, but is it the most important thing? No. Loss prevention also is a good thing, but it's definitely not the most important thing. So I'm gonna say B is the correct answer, because public safety and industry safety is paramount. Right. How does due diligence to affect the responsibilities of a gas? Okay. How does due diligence affect the responsibilities of a gas technician? Due diligence means taking actions that are reasonable in the circumstances that require hard work and persistence. No, due diligence is taking actions that are reasonable in any circumstance, whether it is hard work or easy work. Due diligence means working long hours. No. That's quite irrelevant here. Due diligence means taking responsibility for your mistakes and taking actions that are reasonable in the circumstances to ensure the mistakes are not repeated. All right, that's not a bad thing. but I don't necessarily agree with taking responsibilities being the main reason for due diligence. Due diligence means taking responsibility for your actions, taking actions that are reasonable in the circumstances, and it would be expected from a reasonable person. That's what I'm talking about. Not after the fact, which is taking responsibility, that is after the fact, but proactive. That's what I call due diligence, and that makes the correct answer here. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the last part of Unit 4A, Chapter 1, which is due diligence. Don't forget to do your Blackboard assignments and make sure you read the assignments, due dates and everything. If you have any questions, email me.